Good evening, folks. Welcome. This is FMA Discussion, and tonight is episode 219, where we're featuring, for the first time, brothers. Yes. So we have Jeff Soriano and John Soriano at Balintawak, and we're going to get into their journey. And again, this is kind of new territory. I feel it's pretty neat. We got two brothers on here doing the same thing and all that. So I'm kind of excited. And if you are jumping in and watching, tell us where you're watching from. Smash that like button. And we're just getting started. So thank you both for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having us, Dean. It's an honor.
Good to be here.
I've seen all these guests you've had, so I'm surprised you even want to have us on. But
my gosh,
it's great to be here.
Yeah, that's what we've been talking about.
Yeah. No. The platform was made. When I did this, gosh, it's a little over 2 years now. I mean, I made the platform, not just for the big names. I wanted people that didn't, quote unquote, whether they thought they had a big name or not, to be able to have a chance to be heard, because they're probably doing great things and maybe nobody ever just gave them the platform. You know what I mean? So that's what it's really about. Yes, I've definitely had big names, but that's not all who I seek out. If you were to if you were to go on the YouTube channel, look at all the list of guests I have, there'd be people on there that you might never heard of, but I thought they were doing great things and just never got a chance to share with anybody,
Yeah, like that guy Belton Lubas. Who the hell's that guy?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding, Belton. You're probably gonna watch this. We just spent 3 days with that guy, so
He's had a cross pass with you, John, right? Seattle? Yeah, I mean.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. I was good.
Guys. Yeah.
Ty's on. Hey, Ty.
Oh yeah.
Hey. Ty Boating. Good to see you again.
There's a guy that's coming on, who will be coming on, I should say. Yeah, so let's jump into it. So again, the folks are just jumping in. If you are, please tell us where you're watching from. And we just made the introduction, and we're gonna get started now. So, all right, first kind of question: who's older?
Take a guess. You asked the question. Take a guess.
Oh gosh, meeny, miny, mo. I'm gonna have to go with John.
Yeah, he's my kuya. So yeah, kuya
Okay.
John.
Okay.
He's got me by a couple years.
By a couple years. All right, fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So how'd you guys? Let's just get some background your martial arts journey before we jump into the FMA. So what'd you guys do as far as your growing up, and how'd you get into martial arts, and what was the first martial art you guys did?
I'll defer to my kuya and let him answer that one first.
So
Be a lot of deferring.
So our father was a martial artist, but not a formal martial artist. So for me, it was the introduction was from him. It was kind of more like Western boxing, a little bit of eclectic arts from the Philippines. First formal martial arts training, actually, I was at Sibling Commerce School. I was 14 years old. This is the one in Seattle. He had at the bottom of it was like a thriftway store he used to own. So at the time, I think the only way to get in was by invitation. It was somewhat selective. I wouldn't say secretive, but selective. And I was lucky to get in, my sister and I, because our aunt and uncle also trained there. And so our uncle, Peter Basho, was one of the senior students. So he kind of, I guess, pulled some strings and got us in. And so started training there. Did that for a few years, and then actually kind of gravitated to, I wouldn't say kind of recruited. So about my senior high school was with Uncle Peter and a group. They kind of started training a little bit outside of the Sifutaki's group, as far as the JKD, the Junfan, but more like an eclectic. And again, so Peter and some of the other guys had been traveling to LA, training with Santo, Richard Castillo. So started integrating a little bit more of the cross-training other systems and Filipino systems too. But I think our emphasis was more Western boxing. But then, 1 week there was a guy coming in, he was a wrestler. And then we have some guys who are more like Taekwondo guys. So that was kind of my first exposure, more like the, kind of like the MMA of today, where people started.
Yeah, way back then before it was called MMA. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. So yeah, it was very enlightening because again, Sikutaki was very, everything's very structured, very organized, following Bruce Lee's kind of that model. But this was really new because it was very eclectic. And it's just a lot of fun because, again, like I said, it was this like 1 week there'd be a guy coming in and he was actually a screamador, some guy that trained in the Philippines. He had some sticks, so we got to see a lot of different things. It was really good exposure.
Kind of like
so I did that for
Academy.
a couple, I think maybe roughly a couple of years, 2 to 3 years, and then was going to transfer in college. Ended up not transferring, but I kind of dropped out from that, and then came back to started Aikido when I got out of college. So. And spent 15 years doing that, really getting in depth as far as even training in other systems, meeting other Aikido teachers, just trying to understand different lineages, that type of thing. And the branch I was with, Shinshin Toitsu, or also known as Ki Aikido, was more. That's Tohei Sensei Aikido, which we have kind of Aikido techniques, self-defense techniques, but the other piece of that was more of an internal discipline, which is like breathing, meditation. Yeah, those types of things. And so did that, and then towards the end of that, I started cross training a little bit in Batojutsu, Ishiyamaru, under Sensei. What is Sensei's name? I'll have to think of it. I can't think of it. Must be getting older, already losing my train of thought here. Did Batojutsu, and then somehow, I don't know, I think my brother and I were talking about one time about Filipino martial arts. And then for me also, there was a little bit of again, that dojo politics. There was some drama going on. Our sensei there was like a split in the dojo. One group went one way and another group went another way. So for me, it was a little bit of an opportunity also to kind of get outside of that. And then somehow I wanted to get involved with Filipino martial arts. And about this time was when Filipino martial arts are starting to get a little bit more recognized. And so I started training with, I asked my uncle Peter Bacho, who should I go see for Filipino martial arts? He said, go see Guru Pete Israel. And he was kind of a product of the IMB Academy, also from LA. So I had been in Seattle running the Seattle group. So again, very eclectic. Again, the core is probably Western boxing, got exposed to a lot of different things. I think some of the FMA systems, we did some Dose Paras, Inasanto blend. There was also Lukai, Kali, things like that. And it just so happened too that I think I did that for a couple of years. And then Guru Pete was moving back to LA or to Long Beach, where he's from. And I started kind of looking around again for others. And then about that time, just happened to be the right timing. My brother had met GM Bobby Tabuada and then started training with him, and that was kind of my introduction to GM Bobby. So I mean, in reality, I mean, I hate to admit it, but my brother actually was my kind of my first teacher in Tabuada Balintawak.
Yes, yes. There's it. For the record, my first student.
But it was.
We wanted to bring this up.
Pretty short-lived.
I really don't want to admit
it. Pretty short-lived. Short-lived, and then, but yeah, I kind of started training once I met GM Bobby. I mean, yeah, I just went to visit my brother one spring, and once you met the man, and you just see that power and that just the speed, and I just was sold right away, and then kind of started training with him exclusively. So. I have to admit, my brother was actually the one who introduced me. He started training before me.
It's okay.
Admit it. Just admit it.
It's okay. You can say it again.
So that's a little bit more condensed version of me, martial arts background, and kind of getting into where I am now with Filipino martial arts and Tabuada Balintawak, which is really my base now, really my focus.
Okay. All right. We got some, before we turn to Guru Jeff, we got some folks saying we got Chris Hubbard. Hey, we got Miguel Ruby from California.
Frank
from Florida.
Master Mike. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We got Frank, and we got Tom Cohen.
Yeah.
Cohen.
Right. There's another one. Okay. So Guru Jeff, let's, so we know you were John's first instructor, so we're not going to cover that again.
We won't cover that again, but like my brother, I had a little eclectic background, but mine was a little different. When I got to college, I joined the boxing club because I was the kid who was watching my brother and my uncle. I was a little too young to be training with them, so I watched them train, and my mom wouldn't let me train. She said, "You're too young. You can wait till you're in high school and you can start doing that." And I just was a little too young. But I used to sit in the backyard, hold the stopwatch, watch him and Uncle Peter beat each other up, and I used to worship those guys. And I said, I can't wait to do that someday. So when I got to college, I wanted to learn how to box because, you know, we had this background with our dad talking about fights, and we always had a heavy bag hanging in the yard. So I joined the boxing club and started getting into that, and I did that for a few years. And that kind of gave me a little bit of a base. And then when I got out of college, I had moved to California, and I got into Muay Thai. And I trained at the San Francisco Fairtex gym, kind of in its heyday. That was Alex Gong, rest in peace. He died prematurely.
That's right.
But he was one of my instructors, as well as a bunch of these. That was when K1 was really huge. And
it was popular, okay.
Yeah, and a lot of those, I mean, I think they probably held, at the time I was training there was maybe 4 of the 5 world belts were actually in that gym at that time. So it was, I wasn't training to be a fighter so much as I just wanted to train and just continue, you know, training and learning and kind of wanted to learn how to use my legs a little bit. And so did that for a little while. But at the same time, he was doing the keto. So whenever we would get together at, say, you know, Thanksgiving and Christmas, whatever, you know, he's sitting here putting me in wrist locks, and I'm sitting here trying to kick him in the knee. So, you know, we had some pretty funny years there where completely different styles. You know, couldn't be more different. You know, one's impact, the other one's flowing. So, and then after that, I moved to the East Coast, and I actually lived in Providence, Rhode Island, not far from. Aren't you in Connecticut, Dean?
Yeah, Providence is, I think, you know, about 2 hours. You know.
Yeah. And so I was in Providence, and then I kind of wanted to look for something different. I had always wanted to study JKD or something like that, or Filipino arts, and found Rafi Derdarian, who runs a Derdarian Academy there.
Oh, you were with him. Ah, okay.
And so he gave me I really didn't want to learn the JKD as much as I saw them smacking some sticks, and I said, you know, I've been looking for, you know, a stick teacher for years, and he said, well, you got to join the JKD program first before you can hit the sticks. And so I did that, and I just used to sit and watch the class. So finally he said, all right, come on in. And that was my first
staying on the sidelines.
Yeah, so that was my first taste of kind of, you know, picking up some sticks formally, other than just kind of hitting them in the backyard. And then did that for a couple of years, and then my wife and I moved down to North Carolina. We relocated down to Winston-Salem. And as soon as I got down here, I was, you know, researching who I could train with, and looking online, and kept bumping into the same name in North Carolina. It was, you know, Grandmaster Bobby. So I actually, you know, kind of through some of the old FMA discussion boards, I had did a little research and found someone sent me his email address and his phone number. And so I just reached out, sent him this really very respectful note, and said, hey, I'm moving down there. Would you consider teaching me or sending me to one of your instructors? And that was pretty much it. You know, I went down there, and after my first class, I thought, my God, in like one day, I learned so much just from him. I could just tell he just, you know, the style and the things that he had were what I was looking for. So
wow.
I started calling John and bragging, like, hey, I'm training with Grandmaster Bobby now. You got to check this out. Yeah. Right. So the rest is history.
Down there?
Down North Carolina. So that was 2005.
So 2005. So how many years were you in Rhode Island with under?
I was only with Rafi for a couple of years. We were only in Rhode Island for about 2.5 years. Got married there, and then we moved down here. Okay. Yeah. So if Rafi's out there, hey Rafi, I haven't seen him in about 10 years or so, but yeah, he was nice enough to be my first stick instructor.
Yeah, his name, if I'm not mistaken, has come up to be interviewed. I know he's Anasano guy, or the blend there, but yeah. All right, so we got so we just segue right into Balintawak, which is where we're heading. So all right, so obviously, you know, Guru Jeff, you're the one that's, you know, first exposed. Obviously, you're liking what you see, you're sharing with your brother. What resonated, you know, well, I guess we can start with you, Guru Jeff. What really resonated with you to want to, like, not just because you moved to North Carolina, but what really resonated and that you really wanted to stay and continue with this system as well as GM Bobby?
You know, I think most people who have seen him in person and even seen some of his videos, you know, it kind of speaks for itself because he moves honestly. And at that point, I had gone to a few seminars, you know, and I'd actually gone to a couple of the PTK seminars that were hosted down with Kozakowski in Waterbury. And I met Chuhan Gahe there.
You went to you went to Ron's?
Oh yeah, I went to a couple of seminars there.
What year? What year?
2002, 2001, 2002, 2003, something like that.
I had to have been there. Ron was my first FMA teacher. I had to be there.
Oh wow!
You probably were. You're probably one of those guys who's beat me up. Wow. So, you know, at that point, after seeing someone like of that caliber, it really opened my eyes to be like, man, there's some really talented folks out here. I'd love to find a grandmaster of my own. And I was really interested in PTK just because, you know, Chuhan is so impressive, and that was quite a few years ago. So he was moving even better than he moves now.
Yeah, I remember.
Oh my God. And then, but seeing Bobby, what happened with GM Bobby was right when I had contacted him, I actually had already scheduled to go to this big FMA seminar in Vegas at the time, and they had all these big names there, and Bobby happened to be there as well. So it was really coincidental that not only had I reached out to him literally days before, but that he was actually one of the headliners at this big seminar. So I watched all these guys, and I don't want to say any of the names because they're all very good guys. But when GM Bobby took sort of took the stage, the mat, it was explosive.
He's dynamic.
Dynamic, but also the way he taught, I really appreciated. He's, you know, if you get to know him, most people would say this, you know, he's one of the funniest, warmest guys, jokes all the time.
I mean, you guys obviously know him better than I do, but when I went down and gosh, it was not that long ago to go see Vico, you know, I realized he was 5 minutes away. I said, look, I have to go see him. Like, I can't not be down here and not go visit him. And he, yeah, I mean, he was just so gracious and kind, and I get almost intoxicated. I can see why people are very attracted to him. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So he makes it fun, but the minute you bow in on the mat, it changes. And that's one thing I learned from him that I do as well with my students and the way I run my classes is we can joke, we can laugh, and it's all great. And the minute you bow in, it's all business, right? We're there to sweat, we're there to work. And I appreciated that. I like training for training's sake. You know, I'm one of those guys, I like the repetition. I like all that. So, I think it was a combination of his teaching chops, just seeing how he commanded that room where everyone was, your attention's on the man in the middle and his partner. And then, you know, just the drills he did were real fundamental drills. They weren't techniques. It was fundamental drills, hip turns, using your feet for power, generating that power, explosiveness. And that resonated with me. So, yeah, I knew I was sold. I was sold.
Yeah. No, sounds good. And so Guru John, I mean, you got your initial exposure was from your brother, but let's kind of go forward on a timeline. When you first met GM Bobby, you know, what really captivated you where like you wanted definitely to continue in this system and, you know, and you were good. Like what was it?
Yeah. So let me go back again. So I remember Jeff I was supposed to go to that event in Vegas too. I wasn't able to go. I think my youngest was just born or something like that. So I didn't.
No big deal. Just
he sent. I remember. Do you remember you sent me like a VHS video, and you said, you know, here's what we saw. Tell me the guy you like. And so I looked there. Of course, the first thing I zoomed in was like, holy cow, who's this guy? And he's getting a little chubby, and I was like, well, that guy can move, explosive, and just, I mean, the power, the explosiveness, very dynamic. Also, like, I mean, to me, very Filipino. You know, he's cracking jokes the whole time too. You know, very relaxed, but then again, just look at that martial arts prowess right there. And then the other thing that I was impressed with was Eric Lawrence, I think, was his partner, and I was like, look at this guy trying to keep up. And look at him move. So that was very impressive to me. So there was that. And so then I had the opportunity when I went to see my brother on a visit, flew out to North Carolina, and he set up a training session. And I think it was my brother and Scotty Hartzell was over in, I think it was Huntersville.
Yep.
And it was like a private training, right? It was kind of like a intro, get to meet the man. I mean, yeah, it was like, wow, how awesome is that? And just right away, I mean, just everything that teaching. And then of course he gave the demo at the end. And then that's just like, right there, I was already sold. But then just his personality, I get a chance to talk to him. So then now fast forward again, another, I think maybe half a year later, before I left, I said, I really enjoyed it. I think, wow, I've never seen anything like that before. I told my brother, I love to train, but how am I going to do that? I'm in Seattle. He's in North Carolina. How's that going to work? And again, we were trying to figure out the logistics, like, okay, Jeff, you can teach me. Maybe when we see each other over break, Christmas break or something, you can teach me, and I'll try to get some videos or whatever. Just so happened that before I left, I told GM Bobby, I said, anytime you come through Seattle, I'd be very honored if you take you on a tour or whatever, take you around, that type of thing. And it just so happened about a half year later, he came out and he was going up to Vancouver there's a group up there at the time, Vancouver, BC.
Yeah.
He stopped in Seattle. And so I picked, he called me right away. It was just funny because, those days, this was before social media and everything. I think he had a flip phone, and I get this phone call and I'm like, who's this? And he's like, John, it's Bobby. And I go, oh, Grandmaster.
Yeah.
Says, I'll be in Seattle. And then I go, oh, wow. So he arranged it. I picked him up. And then when he came in, then I think Rick Mitchell also came up too. And so, I mean, there was a few saw the sites, but a lot of training. I mean, we did some training. And so I got to train with him, and then drove him up to Vancouver. I hadn't intended on going up. And he said, why don't you come up with us? So, geez, what an opportunity. So drove him up to Vancouver. And I think that the big thing was I got to spend time with him. I got to spend some quality time with him.
Yeah.
Get to know him, get to know the man. And like Jeff says, just the there's the martial arts side, but then just also the person. It maybe didn't have to be Balintawak. It could have been something else, but everything what I was looking for.
Yeah. He's, again, very charismatic. It's hard not to, like, when I went down to Civico, we went over his house, and it was at least like an hour and a half. Like, he was just showing us stuff. Like, he didn't have to do that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he didn't have to take an hour and a half out of his, before we went and grabbed something to eat. And he was just showing, like, stuff from level 1. I think he bridged some stuff into level 2. But I tell you, what really stood out with me as far as him? I saw enough videos on him, and obviously I saw his dynamic moves and just, the power in his hips. I mean, anybody, you don't have to even train Khalid. You could just look at that and but when you're like in close proximity to him, it was, I was like, wow, that was impressive. Like, just the power he could generate in those small movements is what really stood out for me, without knowing necessarily what was being given to me, but I was able to like notice that. And then of course, just his personality. I mean, it's, he was, just funny, great guy, like somebody really just fun to be around with. And like, I didn't feel that, like, okay, he's the GM and I'm just like there wasn't, you know what I mean? There wasn't a wall there.
It kind of goes both ways with him. Respect goes both ways. And so, he's, that's the thing with him, and like Jeff says, I mean, 1 minute you're joking and laughing, and then when it's time to start class, it's game time.
When you're feeling wind go by your face, that would have like split your head open. Yeah.
You gotta stay focused.
So all right, so you guys are both sold. You're on the track. I mean, at this point, did you both make a conscious decision where you were just doing the Balintawak thing? Is that kind of what you guys ultimately decided?
I mean, for me, I started. So I'll tell a story, and I don't know if this is how it is with others who have been direct students of GM Bobby, but my first lesson, I went down there. It was a Saturday class. He says, "Come down." I didn't know what to expect. He just said, "Come on down Saturday." So I show up Saturday, and there's like 10 students there. And from my perspective, they were all good, right? So he gets me in there, he takes me aside, he breaks off a class, and we're in the corner, and he gives me, the 12 basic strikes and side-to-side blocks, real basic stuff. And he drills me for about an hour and a half on those things. And he's got me moving, he got me moving the way he wanted me to move. And I had not moved like that before. And then he kind of stopped and he said, all right, that's good. He saw I was sweating, I was tired, and he says, let's go inside and we'll talk. So we will go into his living room, and in no small words, he just kind of said, what are you here for? What are you here to do? And I said, well, I want to train. I'd like to learn this. I'd like to get good at this. This is amazing. And he says, okay, I don't want any bullshit. He says, this is my first class, 1 hour into training. And he says, and if he's watching GM Bobby, see, I remembered this. He says, I don't want any bullshit. I've trained plenty of fighters. I can train you to be a fighter, but I want to train instructors too. And he says, I'm looking for people with good character. And he says this all the time in his seminars, and he mentions that all the time. It's a big, important thing. And it's not just, he's not just saying it. He says, I'm looking for good character. I'm looking for people who want to carry this. And so, I mean, whether I knew it at that time or not, I kind of had to commit to it because he said, no bullshit. He looked me in the eye and said that. And he says, don't waste my time. I don't have time for this. He goes, there's a lot of people who want to train this. And if you're serious, he's like, I'll help you get there. So that was it. It wasn't this, I want to be an instructor in this art. It was, I want to just learn how to move like that first.
Yeah, right. You
let me just see if I can even keep up with these guys. Yeah. And then, of course, as it grew and as I kind of progressed through some of the stages of the art and the development, you start appreciating it more. And it's, I know it's a cliche, but it's kind of the more you get to know, the more you realize you don't know that much, and you just want to, it's addicting. And the Balintawak kind of methodology is not just a bunch of techniques. It's really that philosophy of, kind of countering, right? It's a countering system. And so it kind of builds on that because you're always looking for the next counter. You're always looking for, that guy has a great technique. How do I counter that? And so you can kind of carry that mentality through all your training. And, so I didn't really set out to be, I want to be an instructor. I want to make money at this, or I want to own my own school. I just said, I want to get good at that because
you want to just be able to move like that. I got you.
Yeah, that's the real deal. I want to learn how to do that, and then we'll go from there. So that was kind of my how I got into it.
Through John. So what made you like, hey, this is it. This is gonna be my system.
So interesting. I never got that speech with the. What are you here
You
for?
were the first student. You didn't get that. You didn't get that speech.
I think he really knew I was pretty serious. So again, before he went back to North Carolina from Seattle when he was on that one trip, again I got to know him and asked a lot of questions. And again, for me also part cultural. We're Filipino Americans. Family has roots in Cebu. So that was part of it, but also just when he told me about a system, he said, so to become a full qualified instructor, you have to produce a student, guide them through the system to complete it, and also, to create your own 24 original techniques. And that was interesting to hear that. And he said, so, whatever you have, you bring that back. So you put it aside for now, and you really, learn the system, learn the curriculum, and then then later on, then you bring that stuff back, or you bring other influences. That was impressive to hear that. I'd never heard that before. And you're adding to it, you're evolving yourself. And then he kept saying, I want my students to be better than me. I mean, I was in some traditional systems. I've never heard that before. So that was a little bit eye-opening and very unique. And so then the last thing he says, that he asked me, well, where are you going? So, what do you want to do this? I said, well, I really would just like to be good enough someday. Maybe I could share it with someone. I'm very proud of this art. It's a Filipino art from Cebu, where our family's from. I just want to be able someday to share it. So he says, okay, here's what you're going to do. You need to do the curriculum, complete the curriculum, and we'll see where you're at from there. And maybe become an instructor. I said, well, we'll see. But yeah, I'd like to be at a place where learn this really well, and maybe someday share it with someone else. But yeah, I mean, the feeling I had from him was very positive, but again, there was a very clear direction. It's like, if you want to do this, you do this. Like I told you.
Yeah, right.
You commit to this. And then he said, and I said, well, how am I supposed to do this? You're on the other side of the coast. I'm over here. So I guess I'll work with my brother. He goes, no, Jeff's already with me. I'll train you myself.
He stole me. He stole my first student.
We don't know. We don't steal students at Balintawak. We don't do that. That's a rule we have. We don't do it. And he said, Jeff's with me,
Jeff's
so
already
don't
with
worry
me.
about Jeff. You come see me, train me, I'll train you myself. Oh, okay. So there it is.
That's funny. We got some more folks jumping in. All right, things are starting to heat up here.
There's
We got
Brian
Alex.
Zawinski.
Alex is on the list
Oh.
of being on here, and I hope
GM
Alex, if you're hearing this, your name's on the list. I hope you would want to come on. We got Balintawak, Cleveland, Artie Miller. Oh, hey,
Patrick.
all right. We got KC from Canada. We got Brett, and we got Paul. All right. Actually, my next question, Jeff, you actually kind of touched on it. So the word quintada, its meaning and what it means to each of you.
Oh, the quintada, the term
I know.
quintada. I mean, the way I sort of interpret that to me is it's really the counter for counter, right? And so I still love that philosophy, the kind of a Balintawak philosophy, which is, for every attack there's a counter, and for every counter there's a counter, and so it's infinite, right? It keeps going, and so just like the development of your 24 techniques shows that you are evolving the art. You're not just staying static with the curriculum. Here's how it is, perfect this, that's the end of the story. It is perfect this, now add to it. Take it, evolve it, make it yours, develop your style with it. And it's the same thing with the quintada. It just, there's always a counter, right? There's never the one counter that kills them all. There's no one ring to do that. There's always a way to counter something, and so I love that philosophy, and that's kind of the quintada to me.
Okay, so literally,
absolutely, yeah,
So-
absolutely, yeah. To me, it's never ending. It's right. It's counter to counter. There's never an end. What's the next counter? So
Okay.
you can continually evolving. Yeah, that's quintada. I agree with you.
No, awesome, because I definitely, because I want folks that are watching to kind of know what that term means, the prefix to the Balintawak and all that. And so, okay, reading your guys' websites and all that, one of the things I got is the questionable purity. And what you guys alluded to, I think it's absolutely fascinating that one of the things I admire most about this system, I should say, maybe not system's not the correct word, what he does is all that, allowing students to bring stuff in to not only evolve, but obviously to improve and to get students really to participate in the evolution of the system and all that, as opposed to, okay, we're going to stay in this lane. Nobody can leave. And I just think that's so open-minded, is such a rarity. And I just think that's incredible. So my question to you guys is, whoever wants to go first, is the purity is questioned, but I think people really need to understand that what he's doing actually is evolving, and I think, in my opinion, for the better. So what say you guys on that?
What do you mean by that?
So in other words, what I was reading and I've heard is that some have questioned his purity of Balintawak and all that. However, I think what he's doing is absolutely fantastic. How he allows add and how he adds to make it basically evolve and better through himself or his students, what the students are bringing in and all that. And I guess my question to you guys is, do you guys see that? Is it embraced fully within your guys' system and among other players? And what's your guys' feeling on that?
Well, I can say that just in the time that I've been doing this, when I first started, the organization and people who are training in this style of Balintawak has grown. Not to mention Balintawak, period. Right? There's all the different, there's so many different names now. You got Wattbag, Tapamina, and they're all good, and they all kind of trace back to the same lineage. Anshan Bakon. So. I'm not sure how those other systems, other Balintawak families do their testing, but I just know how I can speak for Tabawada Balintawak and, bringing the 24 techniques. So I've seen an improvement. I mean, we've been doing this for almost 20 years, and so I've seen a lot of players coming and going and coming into the organization, and you're seeing better athletes. You're seeing people bringing a lot of grappling into it. You're seeing
a couple level 7 tests, and they.
Oh yeah, you're seeing it all. You got some really talented martial artists and athletes coming in who are training in this methodology in our group, and man, just like this last weekend, that some of the people who tested were just, the levels going up. It's getting better, and I think that's part of it is when you have kind of this open source methodology, it makes it better. It's just like computer programming. It's the same thing. If you just stay with the same code, it's not going to get any better. But if you allow new ideas, new things to come in and evolve, it should keep growing and improving.
I totally agree with you. Like there's some systems, I'm not going to, for sake of the show, I'm not going to say, but I've seen they're kind of like I looked at them like 20 years ago, and it's the same stuff. Like I think that I saw 20 years ago, and so I just think it's fascinating that takes that approach, and he encourages students to bring back. How can it not get better? You got different influences coming on, different backgrounds coming in. I mean, how can it not evolve and get better? I mean, what say you, John?
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. Very refreshing, right? I mean, Jeff and I have been fortunate too. We travel to the Philippines quite often, and we've had the opportunity to train some of the other Balintawak Grandmasters, like Nick Elazar, Roma, Master Boston over there. The core of Balintawak's the same. The core is the same. I mean, as GM says, a lot of the other Grandmasters, it's different hands, different flavors. Goes back to the core concepts, but now the personal expression takes over. And then, like Jeff alluded to, we just had a testing at this camp, and I mean, I remember when we first went to some of these larger camps. I mean, the evolution that we have some better athletes now. The standard keeps getting. I mean, and then you see these guys bring in some new techniques, and you're always watching to see what they are. Like, oh wow, look at this one. Maybe I'll steal that, or how do you counter that? I mean, everything evolves. Everything it just keeps continuing to grow. But I mean, just this weekend. I mean, it always inspires me too to see some of the younger, as I said, kids now. I see these kids coming in. Wow, look at these kids. Look at these kids. This is great. It inspires me.
I think it's fantastic what he's doing. It's one of the things, when it's funny, when I started doing these interviews, I always heard about Balintawak, but I had really no idea like what his system's about. And then when I had him on, doing and all that, and I found out, wow, he's got 7 levels, and at the level 7 test, you actually have to bring material in. I just thought that was just like so refreshing to hear. Like, I just thought that was like, matter of fact, while we're on it, but let's talk to people about kind of the structure as far as like level 1 and then of course you get to level 6, and you guys obviously can do a better job than me describing it. So let's hear about the levels.
I'll let John. John, you want to?
Okay, well, all right. So level 1, level 2, really to me, they're the forms, right? So you have striking forms, you have your defense and counter forms. We have some templates, right? Defense and counter template. And then also, part of there's then your combinations of striking, attacking, that type of thing, and then you progress into like the level 3, which is grouping system scenarios, kind of some templates. Someone's grabbing your stick. What do you do? Someone's thrusting at you. What do you do? Start transitioning to like the level 4. Now it's speed, getting a little faster, improving everything. You start adding some different dynamics. You have the core again, your template, defense and counter. What happens if we do defense and counter in more of like a really close range? You use butting, you use punching, you use your offhand. You start integrating your offhand to unbalance, disrupt, strike, that type of thing. And then level 5, you start transitioning. Now you become. So in the beginning, you're learning defense. I mean, that's in the structure. It's stressed as defense, the defense and the counter. And you start transitioning to learn how to feed. And to me, feeding is an art. It's an art in itself in terms of how to properly feed. And because you're guiding a student through this. And that's the process of this. Everyone sees it. Easy to recognize now. Most people that see FMA, they see Balintawak player, oh, that's Balintawak. You can see the agak. The agak is the guiding. There's one feeder, one receiver, right? There's a stimulus, there's a receiver. You're training, reflexes, that type of thing, and then all the way through to completion. So completion really then, and GM Bobby has introduced it. Then you get to your semi-advanced techniques. So now here's combination techniques off the basic template. And then as we talked about earlier, then you have your full qualified to become a full instructor. Now you have to guide someone through the system. They complete the system, and then you produce your own original technique. So now you're evolving and you bring something into it. So yeah, that's, I think, in a nutshell. Hopefully, Jeff, does that your understanding?
Yeah, what he said. He did a great job of it. He did a great job of it. But I would add that, kind of touch on what he said about when you kind of start feeding at the later levels, it's not so easy as to just say, oh, well, I learned it defensive one way, now I just reverse engineer it and go backwards. It doesn't work that way, because there are lots of little, I don't want to say tricks, but just ways and methods that you can have a little more success with that. And I think that's where you have an experienced teacher who can guide you, teaching you how to feed and how to teach and how to lead. And ultimately, you kind of indirectly start learning how to be a little more offensive and how to be more creative, because from the earlier levels, as John said, it's defense, it's reaction. And so for me, I really emphasize those first 3 levels with my students, because I don't want them to have to think too hard. I want them to react. It's about reaction. It's about skill building. And then once they can start showing a little bit of competency in those earlier levels, the basic defense, basic countering, that's when you can kind of start going, okay, well, now you can start thinking from the other side. How do you set some of these things up? How do you set up a technique? How do you get from here to a disarm? How do you get from here to, doing something else? So, that's the trick. I think it's almost like learning 2 separate systems. You kind of learn the defensive side first, and then hopefully your instructor drills that into you and gets you good enough that you can now jump to the next thing, which is starting to think, actually, to sort of stay ahead of the student or the opponent. So it's,
teaching is built in the system. Later stages of the curriculum is now you have to start learning how to feed, but also you're teaching a little bit. You have to understand, and then then the really cool part is then when if you complete the system and you want to be a full instructor, now you have to guide someone. And as Jim Bobby says, I mean, someone's going to ask you all these questions. You need to know the answers. If you don't know, figure it out. And so all the dynamics that come is being an instructor, teaching someone. So that's really the beauty of this system. This curriculum is really really laid out very well.
No, it seems it. I mean, by the levels and the groupings. So for the folks who are watching, so when you get to level 6, at that point, do you have to go to level 7, or is that a personal choice, or how does that work out?
It's it's called level 6 is also termed completion of the art, right? Okay. And in many ways, and you don't want to think of it as it's the end, and that's certainly not how GM Bobby meant it. But you've learned the basic curriculum, right? In my opinion, you go from a basic student to now you're like an advanced student. You've learned all the basics. You've demonstrated that you understand the curriculum from beginning to end, right? It's a short curriculum if you look at it. Our curriculum fits on one page, one piece of paper, right? It's deep, but it's one piece of paper. And so you certainly don't need to become an instructor. And I tell all my students who've reached that level, I say, well, it's up to you now. If you want to go to the next step, otherwise I call it the toolbox. You have the basic toolbox. What you do with this? Do you want to take this and go be a combative fighter? Do you want to go fight in the ring? Do you want to be an instructor? Or do you want to you're satisfied, you got it, move on, that's great, you finished it. So that's kind of the way I approach it with the way I teach. And if any of my students who reach level 6 say, hey, I want to become an instructor, which most of them have, then I'm there to support them on that journey. But a lot of that is going to be some self-exploration. It's finding a student or two and kind of going through that. And it's a journey that you go as an instructor, you go on the journey with your student. You don't just kind of teach them and then they figure it out. I mean, it's really a very, to me, an intimate relationship. Yeah. So that's the appeal of it as well. Some people don't want to teach. That's fine. They don't want to run a school. They don't want to do that.
Right.
Others do. Yeah. So, yeah.
So then level 7, so assuming, okay, so you get to level 6, you're advanced, you got the system, you make the conscious choice you want to become level 7. So is there a time frame that you have, or I know you have to bring stuff into it. So what is exactly is expected of you as far as regards of the student level 7?
I think GM Bobby's always said, it's about 2 years, right? He says, I'll give you 2 years to work on your full, if you want to be an instructor.
Okay.
Right? So that's about, maybe you're about time to develop the student, to get through the curriculum, complete the curriculum, and also for you to really work on developing your own techniques. But again, there's no timetable as far as an absolute, you have to do it within this much or whatever.
We got guys who, took a break. Took a break for a while and then kind of came back and eventually came back and found a student and then, tested 10 years later. For me, it took 5 years. It was about a 5-year period. I was probably ready maybe earlier, but that's how it just played out, with GM Bobby. You kind of look for his approval and I think there is a good amount of time needs to transpire, because I think it's one thing to sort of teach the techniques and have them test on those, but it's another thing to have a little deeper understanding. And I think when you go through that with a student, answering their questions, working through the solutions, because everyone's a little different. All the students are different. They bring different skill sets, different baggage per se, but it's a challenge. And so getting them to sort of stick with it for that period of time as well. And we all have different standards. So I like to be pretty strict. I think I'm fairly strict and expect a lot out of my students if they're going to go all the way. So that's usually a conversation we have after they've been doing it for a little while, is I kind of say, how far you want to take this. And if you're in, then let's go. And then here's what I expect moving forward. And so that's about how it works.
Yeah. I'll get some more folks. We got Tom. All right, Tom, I'm going to get to your question. We got Joel, and let's make sure I haven't missed any questions. Reese, Jason Ward, hey, Jeremiah, right? Okay. All right, is this so? 2008, you both opened up schools. Was that coincidence, or is that just how it happened?
That's both. We both completed. That's our completion.
Oh, so that was so you both went. Oh, okay, you both. Okay, all right.
Yeah. So again, I was in the garage pretty much, but officially as a business, it became official. Balintawak Seattle was 2008 when we got our completion.
Okay.
But yeah, it wasn't until 3 years later when I moved outside the garage. So it was kind of like, your classic backyard training group in the garage, and then, worked on developing still continue to work on my craft and get better. And then also start teaching some guys. That's what GM says. Okay, now, and I asked him, okay, now what? I said, got completion. Now what? He goes, well, produce. Produce. Yeah. I said, okay. So that was the path. So yeah, I think that's what coincidentally it was. Yeah, 2008 was our completion.
Yeah, that's what both of you were saying. Okay. So, so then we got a question here from Tom. Guru, Jeff, and John, in what ways did Balintawak with GM Bobby influence your teaching style?
Well, I think I touched on that earlier, when I said kind of, I've learned a ton of things. He's, that's another thing that I have such high respect for GM Bobby, is that he's really a master teacher. He's a master level teacher. He's one of the best instructors you'll ever meet in any topic. He just really understands how to communicate, certain things. And so from him, I learned, one of the big things is, once you're on the mat, it's all business, right? And you go serious, and you can't be afraid of some hard work when you're training in this style.
we go at it pretty hard. I've trained with a lot of other different styles and friends who do other things, and a lot of them are usually pretty surprised at how hard we go, right? And some of the drills we do. Not to say that people don't do that, but I just know that that's something that I've learned, and that I've learned from G and Bobby, that I do with my students. We go pretty hard. I like them to leave with a pretty good sweat on. And if we didn't get it through, maybe it was a heavy technique class that day, we're still going to carve out 5 or 10 minutes and put on some mitts or something and get them sweaty before they leave, because I think you need to have that. So I like the hard work, and I got a lot of that from G and Bobby.
Okay.
Yeah. One of the things that I've always admired about G and Bobby, he's able to really get the most out of the students, right? In a lesson, he's really pushing you to that limit. He's saying, I'm going to quadruple your speed. I'm going to double your speed, triple your speed, quadruple your speed. And you feel like you got that. I mean, when he's training you. And so that has always been a little bit of a model for me. Like, how do I get the student to get that little extra, just push himself just a little bit more? Always feel like you're right on that edge. How do you do that? I mean, that's been one of the models for me.
Okay. And we got another question here, and I think it's for you. Go, John. Yeah, it is. Wow, I didn't realize this. John, one question. Did your background as a tennis pro help you with your stick fighting? Tennis pro, wow. Right.
Yeah, I was a teaching pro for a while. Actually, Jeff taught also. We both have a competitive tennis background. So, yeah, I think that helped in terms of a lot of the right is impact. Kinetic. I can talk about kinetic chain. Starting from the legs, the hips, generating power, right? So there was some advantages to that. The transition wasn't maybe as difficult, but then the other thing too is I have this shoulder that just it doesn't always feel good sometimes swinging the stick. But again, I think initially that transition from being able to learn how to swing a tennis racket translated to swinging a stick. Making impact
mechanics.
Okay. Yeah. There's a lot of similarities.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a tennis racket's 27 inches long, and that's about the size of the sticks we're swinging.
Well, there you go. 28, right? Yeah,
That's
exactly.
Right.
Yeah, right. And we got this one for you, Jeff. Before the night is over, maybe you could share what it's like to get stabbed by GM during your level 7. Why wait till the night is over?
Oh,
Alex
Alex Servaz, everybody. So Alex is referring to my level 7 test.
Yeah.
And oftentimes during the level 6 and 7 tests, GM Bobby's been known to pull out a sword, a live blade, like a 20. It's about a 28-inch. I think Panuti is his favorite blade. And he feeds you, and you got about a minute of him poking at you with this sword. But of course, he's got, precise control. And at the end of a typical level 6 or 7 test, you got nothing left. You're spent. You've been training for 3, 4, 5 hours for a 3-day weekend. You're wiped. You got nothing left. And, I sort of was flailing my arms towards the end there with this sword in my face, and I got poked in the arm. And so
you got lightly poked, lightly skewered.
That was how my test ended, and it was very memorable for those that were there. I'll just say that because it ended in a literal pool of blood.
Apparently, because Adam Greenspan, I remember that test. So
Adam tested. He also tested FQI. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, Adam was there.
Adam's my testing buddy. Adam.
Yes. Okay, let's go on to this. So when you guys teach it, do you I know you bring your stuff in there, but do you follow based on certain levels exactly how GM Bobby gave it to you, or do you put your own nuances in it as far as your teaching style, personality style? What do you each of you, what do you guys kind of gravitate towards? Emulating? That you can't emulate 100%. That's not fair. But do you try to emulate some of what Bobby does, or have you also brought your own experiences in there as far as how you teach?
I don't think you could you could teach anyone precisely how you were taught. I mean, it's pretty hard to do that, especially with someone who's, get gifted like GM Bobby. I mean, we could try to be like, you could try to be like that, but he does some things that I don't see anyone else doing. So, but it's more about the methodology that I take from him, and then I apply my own. It's really your own style, and that's what they say. It's everyone's got different hands, and I stay on the same emphasis, right? I keep to the curriculum. Of course, we have our own drills. I have my own drills that, John has his own drills, and all the instructors have their own drills that they do. But we stay within the curriculum if it's a student who's going for, that kind of completion and that kind of journey. So, but yeah, it's, it's different hands. It's, we all communicate a little differently.
Yeah.
Similar. Yeah. It based on the curriculum. The curriculum is the reference. But again, we have some of our own individual drills we might do. But again, the emphasis is the same. Well, whatever GM Bobby's emphasized, I always have it in my brain. And what we sometimes joke about, we hear the same things in our brain about certain things. Twist that foot, react quick, faster, things like that. I mean, those are things that. But again, yeah, we have our own style. I think I'm probably, I'm not a big talker. I like action, learn by doing. I'll say a few things, but I want to see movement. Maybe a little more laid back. Coming from a background, I spent many years in very traditional, formal training systems. That this one, so this is more my personality. So that's one thing also I gravitated to it with Bobby is it's a little laid back in that way, and so it's not super structured, not super formal. But yeah, when it's time to go to work, we go to work. It's really working hard. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So what, as far as your students go, and you guys, might have touched on this, regardless of level, is there something overall theme that you try and instill in your students, regardless where they are in their journey? Is there a theme or something you try to press upon them?
John? No, take that one.
Yeah. I don't know. I think, because I follow the curriculum, I think I try to stay within where everyone is as far as, what level, where they are in the progression, and try to, okay, what's the next piece of progression? Make sure that you're fine tuning where you are now, but then also with the next place in the progression. I think that's kind of the goal. I always want them to have goals, not just come in and just kind of just doing stuff just to do it. I want there to be some, there's got to be a goal behind it, and that's usually within the curriculum. Here's the next place in the progression.
Yeah. Some instructors, like Burton's really good at this. Like he'll tie in like real life stuff. Like for instance, do you want to do techniques that are going to come out, or just like would you choose toxic people to hang around with? Like he's got a way of paralleling, stuff like that, which I think is, it makes you think, and and all that. How about you, Guru Jeff?
I think one thing that I do, and I've learned this over time. It's changed a little, and I've learned a lot. Of course, the more students you have, and the more times you kind of go through that process, you learn and you try to get better. And what I've learned pretty early on is that everyone's a little different, right? I knew how I learned the system. I learned it from Grandmaster Bobby, and many of the FQIs at the time that were in the area helped me while I was coming up, right? And so I learned it a very certain way, the way it was taught to me. Trying to apply exactly how that was to every single student, I learned pretty quickly wasn't going to work, because you got people with different backgrounds, like they bring different skills, different athleticism, different body types, different mentalities, different places in life. Teaching someone who's, say, 20 years old and doesn't, versus teaching a guy who's middle-aged and has kids, it's a different schedule that you got to work around, and different things pulling away from the training. And so I learned that pretty quick, and I try to apply that, which is each person's individual, right? And so I have a curriculum, I have some of my own little tricks of the trade, but everyone's different. And so learning how to kind of apply it and get the best out of each person is really important. And I think that goes back to what GM Bobby says all the time, which is I want to make my students better than me. And I think in some instances I've succeeded. I think quite a few of my students have probably surpassed me in skill at this point, right?
Well, that's awesome though, that you are also are advocating that, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right. So do you guys follow, each of you, the same ranking structure? Nothing changes there, deviates there, same thing, levels 1 through 6 or 7 rather?
Yeah, absolutely.
Curriculum's the same. I think for me though, like my students know in Seattle, I do have included some, maybe I call them little extra techniques that I like to see, certain, forms. Like for example, GM Bobby had introduced us to kind of a enhanced form of one of our shadow fighting form. Right, it's kind of a piece that he had shown us several years ago, that he was showing us, and then kind of stopped doing it, but I kept it, and so that's one of the things I've included in our curriculum. So when the Seattle group tests with me, when we do our regional testing, I expect to see that. But again, everything's the same. The curriculum's the same. The requirements are the same. Just maybe a few little pieces.
Okay. What about, as far as you're testing your students? Is there like a general time frame on the earlier levels, or is it more, where you think they're at, or if they're peaking at a certain point? How do you guys? What's the evaluation? I guess.
I let them know where they are all the time, because we're kind of progressing through, generally, staying on that rough curriculum. And so I know where they are, and I'll let them know, and it's mutual. I don't just say you're testing today. I'm not quite like that. I know some traditional schools say today's your test, and then they just, I'm talking to my students. And so I'm saying, hey, you're starting to get pretty good. Looks like, I think you're almost ready to test for level 3. Let's start focusing on those elements for the next, say, few weeks or month, or however long I think it takes, and then we go at it, right, until I'm satisfied with what I see, and then it's ready for test time. That's how I do it.
Yeah, similar. I agree with Jeff. Similar here with me. I try to tell my students, I'll let you know when you're ready. That's what we're working on. We have a goal. Trust me, your teacher. Trust me to tell you when you're ready. And but yeah, I don't like the idea when students are telling me that I'm ready for this level. Then that means they're probably not going to test for a while.
Yeah, that's the last thing.
Yeah, students come up to, when am I testing? That
doesn't work.
Yeah, I don't know what I would do there if somebody did that. That would be, wow. That would be, I'm so glad that hasn't happened to me. Wow. Oh my gosh. Yeah, man. Now watch like next week. It's going to freaking happen. You know what I mean? But what, so is there now, you're able, so far as each of you, you're able to test them right up to level 6. Is that correct? Or how's that
level
work?
5. Yeah,
level 5.
We can test them through level 5. Yeah.
Up to level 5.
6, they have to go see the man, right? Or okay.
So my level 5 test is very challenging, because that's the last test I'm allowed to conduct before we endorse them to the Grandmaster for their completion.
And then he oversees level 6 and level 7, of course. Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. So all right. So up to level 5. Okay. Just for again, no, in not specific time frame, to get to level 5, generally speaking, on a average student, general time frame.
Couple years.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I've seen it done much faster. Some of Brian Sloyer's students in LA are getting there faster than that. But they're putting in the hours. And Dean, this goes to that question you just threw out there yesterday or the day before about is it hours or years?
Yeah.
I had that conversation on Sunday with a couple different people, and if you're putting in your 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 hours, and in whatever time you put it in, and you've got the capacity to retain all that information, sure, then you've done it. So I've seen it happen, but general rule of thumb, you said level 5, I'd say probably a couple of years, average student. That could be up to 3-4 years even. Just depends on people's journey. Everyone's different.
Yeah, right. How many hours they're willing to put in a week and all that. That's funny. That post, I was hemming and hawing. Should I post this? Should I post this? Should I not? Should I do it? And I just made sure what I put in there that was very delicately put. I wasn't advocating to one or another. That was very coming from a pure objectivity. And I tell you, nobody got emotionally unraveled. I thought the responses were actually really good. So
I like what some guys said about that years are actually important as well, because you kind of pick up some wisdom, and there's that time
tenure. Yeah,
those gaps.
Tenure speaks.
Yeah. And so I would say, I've learned a lot just over the years. It just kind of sees some things. You go through the sequence and you learn. You get wiser to it. So
it definitely absolutely stands for something. Absolutely. And then a couple of people I had to reiterate to them, said, look, there is no right or wrong answer here. It's you know what I mean. All right, we got another question here. Okay, so this is from Guru Tom. Guru John, what challenges, if any, did you face transitioning from Aikido, and how did your were there any issues with your transitioning from Aikido? And part 2, how did your background influence your Balintawak?
Interesting. Tom, Guru Tom. Yeah, he was a kind of an Aikido guy also too. So yeah, I can.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. You can see. I think for me, what I took a lot from the internal training is relaxation, structure. I mean, balance, that type of thing. And then I'm very familiar with wrist locks as far as techniques. So once we get in again, Balintawak close range. So anywhere like that, I'm real familiar with those. Similar to Modern Underneath with Remy Prestis. A lot of those that trained with him and trained the system. A lot of the locking, the joint locks, those types of things. And I'm also you can see I'm a little more upright, and that maybe if I hadn't done Aikido, I don't think I'd be quite as upright when I do my Balintawak play. So those are, I think, in terms of influences, I mean, those are the things that I'd like to be super explosive like GM Bobby, but that's not me. I just move my own way. But yeah, those are the influences.
Okay. And all right. I just want to make sure we're not missing anything else. Okay. All right. Okay. So, all right, the camp. Let's hear about it. So, kind of a big event, not only a birthday, but it seems like some folks from all parts of the country came. I mean, Vico was telling me on the phone that it was pretty exciting. I guess he got back to go the second day there and all that. So, from your guys' perspective, what was the first day like? What was the first day composed of? I know there's some guest instructors.
Yeah, so the I think the format of the camp has been similar over the last recent few years, which is it's usually a 3-day camp. Sometimes it's been 4 on a couple of years, but typically it's a 3-day camp. Friday is usually reserved for GM Bobby lets a lot of his instructors teach the FQIs. Okay. If he has some guests in town like Vico and he had Bear Billison, he'll let them teach. Tim Hartman taught for a little bit. And so Friday is usually guest instructor day, but GM Bobby sometimes teaches as well. It just depends on what kind of mood he's in and how much time there is. And that's kind of a good time to kind of warm up. You kind of see everybody. It's a little reunion. And, everyone's out there, and each instructor, most of the instructors get about anywhere from say 15 to 20 minutes, kind of a mini seminar. He says, teach a couple techniques and then get off the mat. So that's great because that's where you see some of the influence, right? You get some guys who have a grappling technique, and then you have and they all fit it into the Balintawak sort of play, right? And so people teach it, and then they kind of show it, and it's pretty cool. You see some really cool stuff in that. And then Saturday is typically reserved for GM Bobby, right? He usually kind of takes the reins pretty early, maybe after one or two instructors kind of warms the crowd up, and then he gets the bulk of the show on Saturday. And he, it always starts in the basics, right? It's right back to the basics. It's right back to basic striking, punching, moving. And you got a room full of 80, 100 people doing the same thing. It looks like that scene in Enter the Dragon where you got,
they're all lined
guys
up.
all like, yeah. It's pretty cool though to see that many people doing
Balintawak. He draws a crowd, man. Gosh.
Yeah, it's pretty big. The last few years they've gotten pretty big, and then Sunday is pretty much reserved for testing, and that's usually a pretty long day. You start usually with the lower levels. You kind of work your way up into to the 6s and 7s at the end, and usually close out the day with like the guys going for their 6 and 7 tests. And
so there's even level 1s too, lower levels that even test there. Oh, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a pretty busy day for testing. It's a long day. Some of the guys going for the 6s and 7s are kind of sitting on the mat for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours, even watching other people test and struggle and stress, and then
anxiety and nervous and
you got 70 or 80 people with cell phones filming you, and you got Grandmaster staring at you, putting you through the test.
Not this guy, man. That's enough for me to like pack it in.
So you got to remember too that we haven't had this big camp. It's been 2 years, so it was a huge
COVID.
This year was like a huge reunion too. So
that's right, COVID. Right. Yeah. There's some people that you guys haven't seen, right? I gotcha. Okay.
So it was fun to see that, and again, I haven't seen some of these people for a couple of years, and
you catch up and what have you. Who were the level 7 testers?
So Jesse Santiago from Chicago, he does FMA Pulse.
Oh yeah, he tested level 7. Oh, all right.
He did test level 7. And Carlos, what's Carlos's last name? Carlos.
I can't remember Carlos's.
Jimenez.
Someone can help us.
Yeah. Guru Carlos, anyone know? Yeah. He's a Kajikembo guy. He's been studying, but yeah, he tested as well. So there was 2 level 7s. But there was a lot of level 6s that were really, really amazing tests. So
very impressive. Yeah. Very inspiring again. Yeah.
The reason I'm asking is GM Bobby sent me a message about Brian Sloyer, and was it his student that tested level 7?
So Brian Sloyer, who I got to do a shout out to Brian, because he was one of my first students. He was really my first student to pass completion. He's the one that I took through that got me to my instructor test. He is now running a pretty good sized school out in LA. So he runs the Balintawak LA school out there, and he's in the stunt and film industry. And his students are from the industry. So there's some really elite athletes that are coming through, and he's teaching them. And so he had a handful of folks under his tutelage that came out and really rocked their tests. And this is a great segue, because guess who stopped by? Brian Sloyer, everybody. He's visiting from LA, and he actually grew up in Winston-Salem. So we haven't spent any time in town in probably almost 10 years. And I said, hey, I'm doing an interview. Why don't you pop by and say hi to the crowd?
What's up, everyone?
Yeah. Like I said, Bobby, he just messaged me. He just messaged me today because I had to ask him about an interview with him, Dan Medina, the guest instructors from the week camp. I said, hey, why don't we do a theme episode on you and the guest instructors you had? And he said, he definitely agreed to it. But in a subsequent message, he also brought up Brian and another student about, so I haven't read that yet, but I saw your name. So definitely something going on with you. Yeah. So needless to say, you might be on the show if you so choose.
No, it sounds great.
But awesome. So All right, so level 6, level 7 tests. You guys had a couple. Level 6 tests were pretty exciting from you guys, and wow. And what? Any other big K, big celebration for GM Bobby, or was that afterwards?
So Saturday night, as per tradition, GM Bobby had kind of prepared a dinner for everybody and brought it right into the school, and they brought a lechon, which he's done a few years in a row now, and a huge Filipino spread. A lot of his friends and family came in and prepared that for us. It was amazing. And after you've been beating each other up for 2 days, and then you kind of let your hair down, have a couple beers, and eat some lechon, there's nothing better, with so. Yeah, it's pretty cool. We that's one of the highlights of the camp is
it sounds
of a nice meal together with all these people. So
now, is that camp every year there, or every? Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Annual camp.
It's his annual camp. He usually does it sometime around this time. Usually, it's typically around his birthday.
Okay, all right, okay.
And it's usually in Charlotte. For his 60th birthday, he did it in Las Vegas. That was a member that were there. That was pretty fun.
You got to go to Las Vegas, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but it's usually around this time, usually around October, November time frame. So if you're out there, you want to check it out.
Yeah, maybe I should. Gosh, I don't know. Could have.
Next year, Dean. Next year.
Could have, would have, should have. What do you do? Yeah, I wouldn't mind going down there and covering it. That'd be kind of neat. And plus, Vico's there now. He moved there from Texas, so it's kind of two birds with one stone, right? All right. Okay, a couple questions. If another FMA system, what other FMA system would you do if you had the time, the interest, and any other factors? Let's go with you, Guru John. What other FMA system would you do if you chose to do? What are
KI?
I tell you, I get more and more people saying that. I tell you.
I think there is something. I mean, similar in terms of maybe a connection between Balintawak and then a kind of a KI in terms of
interesting. I tell you, more people saying that when I asked.
I don't know. I'm impressed. Yeah. I must have to give a shout out to Guru Vico. I was impressed seeing him. What an excellent teacher. And our brother and I were talking about what a tough crowd to come into. With a different system and to share like that,
and yes,
it was outstanding what he shared. But if I have a choice, I think that right off the top of my head, I'd say KI.
Awesome, yeah. Well, no argument for me, obviously. Guru Jeff, if one other system, what would you do?
For me, just at where I am in sort of my journey, I love any of the systems coming out of Cebu, so any of the Cebuano systems that were rooted there. But KI is a great one. It's and we also, John and I have relatives that were from Bantayan Island, and so, and I spent some time up there, beautiful beaches and stuff. So, for me, there's also a cultural tie and kind of the homeland type stuff. So, learning a system at this point in the game, it's not about, for me, it's not so much about techniques anymore. I'm pretty satisfied if all I ever did was sort of stay in the Balintawak universe, I'd be pretty happy with that. I think it's got everything I need.
Credit.
I was bouncing. I do love the KI stuff. Hey, bring me that. Yeah. See, look at the book I just got.
Yeah. You know what? I've had it for 2 weeks now. I've been so busy with interviews and private training of people and this and that. I've yet to, I have it. I've looked at it, but I just haven't opened it up yet and actually started reading it. I've just been and everybody's telling me that, it's great. You guys start reading it. So I'm going to have to just set aside some time and just get on it. Yeah. So, but yeah, KI, obviously no argument.
Yeah. The honest truth is, I only have so much time in the day, and it would be people say, "Oh, why don't you study this? Why don't you study that?" And
I know.
I'd love to, but I need more time in the day. I need to be retired.
I know. I know, but I think it is like I was bouncing around. Like I bounced around from when I got finished with Ensemble, I was Instilling Sayoc, and then Natienza, and then did a little more. Still with Burton, still with Avenir, Tom Sodas, Amok, but KI. Like I just know it. That's gonna be like this is my destination. Like this is where I'm gonna finish. This is where I belong. You know what I mean? It just took 20 years, you know what I mean? But, I guess better late than never. I don't know. All right, next question. How competitive are you guys? Let's get it out. Let's get it on.
So there's a pretty, I don't know if it's significant now. I mean, now that we're adults, but growing up, there's actually a pretty big age difference. So there wasn't your classic sibling rivalry. It was more like I had this little brother that I had to take with me everywhere.
I had this
and
little
my
guy
parents
that
said, take your brother with you.
Follow me around.
Yeah. So I'm in high school and he's still in elementary school type of thing. So so I think, yeah, people asked it. And so true story, on his FQI test, when the panel comes out, it was my turn to go feed my brother. And everyone sprinted over with their camera phones in this scene, like, what are you going to do to Jeff? What are you going to do to Jeff? And I think, as Jeff says, I was probably the nicest one to him there. It just, yeah. So in terms of sibling, I don't know. I mean, maybe Jeff has something that he wants to share, that there's something that I'm not aware of, that some deep sibling rivalry. I don't know.
Yeah, he used to pick on me when I was a kid. It included weapons at times, but
training partner.
Yeah, no, we've always gotten along, but it took me a while to catch up to him because he just had a couple of years on me, so he was always bigger and stronger than me. But I think the funniest times were when we were both doing. He was doing his Aikido training, and I was doing Muay Thai, and it was just such a contrast of styles. But we've always talked about martial arts and fighting and training, and so it's always. We're lucky that we have that, because it's something to look forward to. It's like, oh, I'm going to Thanksgiving dinner. I'm going to get to train for 3 hours out in the yard, before I have dinner with my brother. So,
yeah, you guys getting like cross
cool.
ref. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we should disappear. Our wives know. Oh, we know where they're at.
Yeah, right.
They are getting each other with sticks.
Here's the sticks.
All right. Strong points about each other. So, Guru John, what do you think Guru Jeff's strong points are, as far as teacher, practitioner, anything along those lines?
I would say,
be careful what you say.
He has a way of saying things. He gets away with things. He can say things. It's an honest thing. In some way, maybe some people will take offense, but he can say it in a way that it's the truth, but that people they don't get mad. I don't know how to explain it. It's like if I said that, someone would get like, oh, they'd be offended. Like as picking on him. If he said it, he says it in a way. He has that way to do it. Where
All right, let's flip the script. Guru Jeff, what do you think your brother's strong points are, as far as teacher, practitioner?
Well,
you like to add?
Yeah. So one thing I've always admired about my brother is that when we were younger, I used to kind of call him the silent killer, because he's a lot more quiet than me. I'm a little louder, and I kind of am out there making noise, like he just alluded to. And he's much quieter, but he's the kind of guy that we always looked up to him. All my friends are all scared of him because he's quiet, but he's the kind of guy that looked like you'd break your neck if you weren't looking. So besides that, I'd say technique-wise, I've always admired his Balintawak style, because it's manifest. He's very smooth, and I think most people would agree. He has that effortless movement about him. Some of that, you see. Of course, you see GM Bobby, when he moves, it barely looks like he's moving, and he's usually controlling someone and smacking them, and the sticks are cracked, but he's barely exerting any effort, or at least it looks like that. And I think my brother picks up some of that too. The way he feeds is much smoother than me. I think mine's a little more aggressive and wild, the way I sort of approach it. But yeah, that
was kind. That was kind. Well, actually, people will say we are opposites. I mean, I did Aikido, he did Muay Thai. So our personalities are somewhat
that makes sense. It's no coincidence, probably. You went from a soft, that keto, smooth. I mean, obviously that had a reflection on probably what you're doing now. I mean, that makes sense. And Jeff is banging shins, and so why not just be roughish? That's funny. This has been awesome, man. Like I said, but okay, future goals for each and one of you and your schools. So where are you guys' future goals?
Wow. For me, we've been through several cycles now of students that are completing the system. So I'm very fortunate to have some really good students that have been very dedicated. And so for me, I want to support them. I have them, I have a few guys now that are out. They have their own groups, and that they're building. So I want to support them. Just kind of, for me, we're at like maintenance mode. Just maintain the group, the organization here, but yeah, for me, that's. I'm just, it's fun now where again, you're bearing the fruits of your labor, right? You've worked so hard to develop some students and that.
Not bad being in maintenance mode.
Yeah. So just support that and keep going. I mean, that's kind of the needed. And then also in terms of look at the growth of the Tabawada organization worldwide. I mean, I remember before, how many years ago when there's maybe 30 people at a world camp, and now look at it, it's like hundreds.
Yeah, no. I mean, I saw the one in South Florida, and you're going. I mean, it's. We just want to maintain here, and again, we have a standard here that we don't want to be that group up in the left corner of the U.S. that's like, oh God, what are they doing up there? Yeah,
we want to maintain and keep up, and then you got the Brian Slur's group in L.A. and the West Coast. So there's a couple of groups on the West Coast now that. Want to connect and work together, but now these guys keep raising the standard.
Maintenance, man, being in maintenance mode, nothing wrong with that. That's a good goal. Good. Jeff, what are your goals? You, student, system, school, what are they?
I've purposely stayed fairly small, just because that's the way I can maintain it, right? And so I'm lucky that I got asked this question a couple of times over the weekend of, how have you ended up with such great students? And, the secret is I don't take everybody. A lot of folks approach me. One, I don't have a brick and mortar school. So, you got to find me. When you find me, I only have so much time in the day to train. So I prefer more of a kind of one-on-one and small group gatherings and training. And so for me, I kind of keep it small on purpose, and it allows me to continue to enjoy it. So I don't let some of the other distractions that come with trying to run a big school. And so for me, I'm doing exactly what I want to do, which is, I have a select small group of quality individuals, and just keep evolving, keep trying to get better and keep trying to get better at the craft, and trying to, turn a few other people into other, good warriors out there, and that's it.
Great goals. Yeah. Can't argue that stuff. I mean, wow. That's good stuff. Wow. This has been a pleasure. We're on an hour and a half. So this has worked out perfectly. Again, this is really fun bringing both you guys on and hearing what you guys are doing and all that. The comments reflect from themselves across here. And all that, but I appreciate you both coming on.
It's great, Dean. Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
No, happy to do it.
Pleasure, and wasn't as painful as I thought it might be. A lot of my students know me. I wouldn't typically do this. I'm very minimal on social media.
Okay.
So
get
me out here. That's
I think what it is, people. I've gotten that feedback from a few people, and then they've always said, no, you made it so easy. you know, you didn't make it difficult for us, and you know, and all that. So I try to stick to that and not put people in, you know, in bad positions or uncomfortable or have to answer stuff that normally they wouldn't answer or surprise them with drama. You know what I mean? So you know, I just try to keep everything above them, and yeah, you know, and it's been working. It's been a working formula so far. So you know, we're not gonna fix it if it's not broken for sure. But you know, and Brian, there we got yeah. So be on the lookout. I'm thinking. Let me see here. Well, I got you here.
Yeah, you got to interview this guy because everyone wants to know why he's turning out all these superheroes, these Balintawak superheroes in LA. What he's feeding them?
No. December, man, is freaking booked already.
Yeah. It's all good. Yeah.
Absolutely January though, definitely.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'm gonna write that. Definitely make it happen in January.
Awesome.
Yeah, I guess it's a good thing, but man, the list just gets like growing and growing. I mean, just it'd be like episode 1000 tonight.
You're a really special guest, number 1000.
You know what I mean? It'd be like, yeah, God, I'm not dead by then from all, you know.
I'm just glad we made it in the 200s, you know.
Yeah, that's the thing too. Right. I mean, you know, it's funny when I got into this. I mean, there was a lot of people, you know, of course, the big names, and you know, other people I knew, you know, depending on the camps you're associated with, of course. But there was a lot of people I found out, wow, I mean, these guys are really, you know, just being and doing interviews, and people feed you names and all that, and so that's been a nice thing too, and you get to meet really nice people that, you know, you didn't get to know, you didn't know, you know what I mean? You know, that's been kind of the nice side benefits to this, is that meeting really nice people, you know.
Yeah, it's real cool, Dean. What you've been doing is great, and you know, keep spreading it, because I think you're doing a good service for the community, and there's a couple other guys out there doing the same thing, and I think it's really cool that you guys are doing that.
Yeah, we definitely we got to keep it. You know, we need a voice, so you know, and not just for the big names. You know, a voice for the people who are doing great things, and the women. Yeah, we make a conscious effort to get women on here. You know, let them be heard.
Yeah. You know, I would love to see some of the. I mean, I know, you know, sometimes we see them, but getting some of the old masters out in the Philippines would be pretty cool. And
no, we're trying to do that. The internet
That would be really cool.
It depends on the internet. Tom Pena is really going to be driving that home because he can speak Tagalog. So, but a lot of the issues, believe it or not, it's not we don't want to do it. We absolutely want to do it, but some of the internet connections over there, depending, are scary.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Sure.
So, but we're still working on it. We want it. Like, I mean, we like Henry Sparrow. We're waiting for him to get hooked up with a guy. We're going to get him on that has better internet. But a lot of times sometimes it's internet issues. You know, because we want to hear from them. You know, absolutely. You know. So.
Yeah.
It'd be outstanding. Yeah.
Yeah. If you guys know anybody, you know, through relatives or over there, by any means, don't hesitate to message me. I mean, you know,
I got a list, man.
You can message me.
Yeah, there's a list. We have a list. Yeah, we can help.
Yeah, don't hesitate. No, please do message
the
me.
lesser known. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, because Guru Tom's heading that. You know, because he's in London, he's close as far as the hours, and he's got the language. You know what I mean? So yeah, don't hesitate to send me a list if you know people. More than happy to do it.
For sure.
Yeah.
I would love to see that.
Yeah. No. I would love to as well. You know, they should be heard. You know what I mean? Absolutely.
Yeah. Highly accomplished but lesser known. Yeah.
Absolutely, they should be heard. Yeah, and we'll do everything we can to make it happen. You know, so. But all right, guys, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Dean. Thanks for everyone. Itza, I see Itza's name. Alex, Chris.
Itza, Chad. Yeah, Olympia.
Represent.
Oh, All right, guys. All right, so what I'm doing,
Okay.
I download this and I'll send it the YouTube link to your. I'll message you guys. You guys can share it wherever you want. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thanks, Dean. Thanks for having us.
All right.
Okay,
Anytime. Anytime. My pleasure. You guys take care.
You too.
Okay. Bye, brother.
Bye. Bye.
Good night.
Take care. All right, folks. That wraps up first brother session. All right. That was fun. Okay, what's coming up? Who is next? I believe Brian and Guru Tom are doing a veterans on this Thursday, a Veterans Day special. And then after that, I'm not sure who's next, but yeah, Thursday, Veterans Special. That should be kind of neat. I know that. Plus, if you're watching, if you have not, please subscribe to FMA Discussion on YouTube, where all the monies that we receive goes to charity. We give it all to charity in the Philippines. So you'll be helping us help others. Okay. Also, we got a Christmas raffle. FMA Discussion. Check it out. Bram Franks donated. Brandon Ricketts a lesson. Ray Floro is a KI DVD. There's some really, really good stuff on there. Volps is donating a trading blade. Brian Rodriguez is making one. So be sure to check that. It's right in FMA Discussion. It's a Christmas raffle, which is going to be held December 12th. Really good stuff in there and all that as far as donations go. All right, folks. Thanks for watching, jumping in, and see you next time.